All right, man, peace. So future NBA Hall of Famer and current basketball legend Kobe Bean Bryant made an appearance on the James Corden show to promote his Luciferian book, Wisenard, so that he can continue the indoctrination of the children of America into the concept of witchcraft. And while he was there, he was placed in a very precarious situation. He was confronted with the option of either eating some rotten, spoiled cow tongue, or he must rank 3 NBA greats in a particular order, that being himself, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James. And he acted as if the cow tongue was too nasty to eat, and he finally put forth to the masses what he's always thought, and what we've already known Kobe has thought for a long time, that being that he's the greatest player in the history of the NBA. Because for him to put himself above Michael Jordan, that's basically him saying, I'm the greatest player ever in the history of the league. And I have no problem with Kobe saying that, because I believe that he thinks that. I just know that he knows that he's not. And what Max Kellerman is going to do is basically reiterate or state in a different way what I've always said about Kobe, that being that he knows that he cannot prove his greatness over Jordan because there's no stat that he's better than Jordan in, including winning championships. So, of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
All right, Max. Yep. Set aside the ranking for a moment and what you think of his ranking. Does this prove to you that Kobe Bryant really cares about the GOAT debate?
Of course he cares. He's always cared. Everybody knows that he cares. That's why I did a video about it called Kobe Bryant Still Lying to His Fans. Talking about, I don't care about the GOAT debate. I mean, give me a break. That's all you've cared about. And I have no problem with that because Kobe was great enough to be concerned about his name being included in the quote-unquote GOAT debate. He just loses out because there was very little difference or disparity between how he played and how Michael Jordan played. And Jordan was just naturally greater in every way. He was a more proficient shooter. He was more efficient on offense. He was a better defender. He was better at steals, better at shot blocking, better in the clutch, better in the big moment.
He does, but I want to be specific about the way in which he does. Kobe's belief in himself, of course he has to put himself first. That's what made him so great. He believes that he was the best ever. And that means any court he ever stepped on, he believed he's the best player. Good for him, and he was almost right. Top 10 all time.
No. Top 15 all time.
But he cares about it, but has to say, and may even believe, that he doesn't care about it anymore because it's not...
Or convince himself to believe that he doesn't care.
Not objective anymore. There's no scoreboard really, it's just subjective. But the fact is, it's not subjective. You can come up with a pretty objective measure. By no objective measure is Kobe Bryant the best player ever.
Thank you, sir.
And he gallantly tried to be by being Jordan 2.0. But in fact, he was Jordan 0.9. Like he was
Agreed.
Almost Jordan, but not quite. And because his game was so similar, and they played more or less in the same era before it really changed with the three-point shot.
Kind of, sort of, but not quite. Michael Jordan played in the 80s and 90s. Of course, he had a little swan song in the early 2000s. Kobe Bryant actually played in a far more defensive league than Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan actually initiated the league that Kobe Bryant played in, that being the hero ball era. Michael initiated that in the 90s. That's why you have so many players who got drafted in the mid to late 90s, the Kobe Bryants, the Allen Iversons, the Paul Pierces, the Vince Carters, the Tracy McGrady's. All those guys tried to play like Jordan, and all the teams in the NBA tried to build up those players as being their Michael Jordan, and they all played in the same way. Give that player the ball at the top of the key or on the elbow, let them go one-on-one. And that hurt the league for a while because none of those players were able to play in that style as well as Jordan.
They're really easy to compare, and in every respect. From if you talk to former teammates, to the actual numbers they put up, to the numbers in the context of their leagues, to the championships, to the performances in Game 7s, at the close of games, to defensive measures, every single way, Jordan's a little better than Kobe.
I would not just say a little better. He's discernibly better.
So he loses the direct comparison. The objective record he left behind, which he can't change anymore, proves the point he doesn't want to be proven. And so since he doesn't believe it, which is why he's so great, he can't, it's just best to stay away from it for him.
I agree, because then that would take him to a zone where he starts making excuses about the style of play, and that's the reason why I did not average as many points as Jordan, or the league was more defensive, that's why my shooting percentages were so low, and so on and so forth. He knows that he would look very bad if he were to start eliciting excuse upon excuse upon excuse, which is what he would have to do in order to make up the gap between himself and Jordan.
And that's why I think, in fact, he does care, but he can't tell himself that he does.
Well, he definitely cares, but he's a pragmatist, which both of you can appreciate to some degree. He's not going to spend a lot of time arguing about something he can't definitively convince somebody. People are entitled to their own opinions. Kobe is not going to waste energy trying to convince you of what he believes. But I will tell y'all an inside story. Years ago, Kobe Bryant goes off to me personally about how he felt he was better than Michael Jordan and how he felt that he would bust Michael Jordan's you know what. And I'm laughing because it's Michael Jordan. Kobe looked me dead in my face and said, I'm serious.
That's what truly endeared Kobe Bryant to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan loves Kobe Bryant because of that. And that's why he always had so much respect for him, even when Kobe was on the come up in the late 90s, because he saw within Kobe a kindred spirit, someone who was not intimidated or fearful. Now, Michael knows that he's better than Kobe Bryant, but he loves the verve and the pizzazz that Kobe had within himself to take on all challenges.
He knows how I feel. Ask him. Sure enough, picked up the phone. I called MJ. MJ instantly started laughing. Yeah, he told me that. He says it all the time.
MJ was like, yeah, he told me that with his bitch ass. But that's okay. Little brother always wants to beat big brother.
Time. He dead serious. So what we need to understand is that you can point to ratings metrics. We can point to the eye test. We can point to different errors.
Well, the eye test is always the refrain of people who know that they cannot prove what they're trying to assert. Kobe Bryant's fans are eye test masters.
We can point to a lot of different things that we've seen in the career of Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant, of all the points that he scored, 2,086 assists that were given to him. Only 2 were by point guards. The other 4 leaders in assists to him were from forwards or centers. You've got, what is it here? I got a list here. Derek Fisher, Lamar Odom, Shaquille O'Neal, Pau Gasol, Rick Fox, and Smush Parker. Those were the individuals that are accountable for the assist to some of Kobe's points in his career, okay? Only 2 of them were guards. The others were forward. So Kobe's thinking about what he had to do in order to accomplish.
Have you looked up Jordan's numbers along those lines?
I have not yet.
Because they both played in the triangle for the same coach with similar type of point guards.
Yeah.
And to Max Kellerman's point, playing in the triangle, you cannot look up assist numbers to him or even from him, because the triangle is not a system that is predicated on making sure that one player piles up assists. That was one of the early offensive systems that started to nullify the me first point guard, meaning the point guard who was just compiling assists because he had the basketball in his hands all the time. So, I mean, unless you're going to look up Michael Jordan's stats according to those same metrics as Max Kellerman has already stated, don't even bring that up. And this notion, oh, Kobe Bryant, woe is me, I had to play with certain players and that's the reason why my stats are lower. Knock it off.
Yeah, but not the similar type of supporting cast in terms of Scottie Pippen with P.J. Armstrong and those guys with Michael Jordan compared with Shaq and other guys. It's just different. I'm not saying it's
That's
better
a great
or worse.
passer.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying, but you know, for the most part, he was dominant. He got the ball.
Right, but why bring it up? Why bring it up? Everybody knows that Kobe Bryant played the same role in the Lakers' offensive game plan as Michael Jordan did. It's not about who got the assist on the pass to Kobe. Knock it off.
My only point in bringing that up is to say, you talk to Kobe. The important thing to understand for us all, he's not playing.
No, he believes.
He believes that he ain't joking.
But that's why
he's not joking.
That's why I'm saying it matters to him. It's important for him to believe it, but every shred of evidence points to Jordan, which is why it's him, then Jordan, then LeBron, according to him. Let me quickly say, Kobe's all...
I agree with that, Max Kellerman. That's a great observation. For Kobe to say it's me, then Jordan, then LeBron, that's really him saying it's Jordan, then me, then LeBron. But he has to say himself first.
He's also told me, you know, what if Jordan came in the league with Wilt Chamberlain, right?
Yes, that was a refrain by Kobe. That was a way for him to try to allege that the reason why I was never able to compile a lot of the phenomenal offensive statistical seasons that Michael Jordan was is because I was hampered by the presence of Shaq. When in all reality, your career arc was escalated by Shaquille O'Neal because Kobe was not a good enough player to be proficient on offense and defense and also be able to lead his team to championships at that young of an age. As I've stated in other videos, Kobe did not truly become an all-around great player until the 2007-2008 season, which, ironically enough, is the one and only season that he won an MVP award in the regular season. Prior to that, Kobe was viewed as the greatest attraction in the NBA in the aftermath of him running off Shaq. Kobe fans love to point to the 2005-2006 season and the 2006-2007 season when Kobe averaged well over 30 points per game. But during that time period, once again, Kobe was viewed as a player who was never going to win a championship. He was viewed as a gunner. That's how he was viewed, and he knows it. So that time period did not really augment the time period of winning championship with Shaq. Really, it made Shaq look like an even greater player for being able to win alongside Kobe. Kobe was viewed as the sidekick. That's why it was so pivotal for Kobe to be able to lead a team to multiple championships in the late 2000s. That truly redeemed his role on the first three-peat team. That's when people started to look at those early championships as his championships as well, not just Shaq's, because Shaq left the Lakers, went to Miami, and really should have won back-to-back titles. They should have won it in 05, but D-Wade got hurt in the 05 conference finals. And then, of course, in 06, D-Wade gets all the referee calls in the finals, and they win those finals. But, you know, it's just, you have to really understand how things transpired in certain eras to be able to make correct assessments. But as Max Kellerman is saying, I already knew that Kobe was going to try to make the Shaq was slowing me down early in my career argument, because he always does that. He blames Shaq for why he did not have 8 or 9 straight 30-point per game seasons, shooting 50% from the field like Michael did. Please keep in mind, Kobe Bryant never in any season shot as high from the field as Michael Jordan shot in his worst season in Chicago. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that. And Michael Jordan's worst healthy season, full season in Chicago, Kobe Bryant never shot from the field in the season that Michael Jordan shot in his last year with the Bulls. I believe Jordan shot something like 46.8% from the field. I don't think that Kobe Bryant had a season in LA where he shot 47%.
Right? Because that's what happened with Shaq and him. And he, points that out to say, like, it's difficult for me to prove my case. I was playing next to the modern-day Wilt Chamberlain. My response to that is, if Phil Jackson had Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain on the same team, they would win the championship every year. Jordan won the championship every year in under 7 games. He'd win it in under 4 games.
If Michael Jordan played with Wilt Chamberlain, they definitely would have won championships, because Michael Jordan actually knew how to play with other great players, because he went to North Carolina and he was prepped on how to play in a real system. That's why I always state that Kobe Bryant and LeBron James actually hampered their potential as NBA players by going straight from high school to the pros, because the high school basketball offensive system is totally based on highlighting your best player, especially if you have an ethereal level talent. They're not told, Kobe and LeBron were not told, make sure that we run these sets. They were not running any real sets. It was get the ball to Kobe or get the ball to LeBron. So had the both of them went to Kansas or Duke or North Carolina or wherever, they would have learned to understand the game at a far higher level. And it probably would have stopped a lot of the clashes that Kobe had with Shaq, because at the end of the day, he could blame Shaq all he wants. He had a season, I think, in 01 where he averaged almost 30 a game. He had another season in 03 where he averaged 30 a game. So Shaq was not slowing him down to the degree that he tries to act like Shaq was. And on top of that, Kobe really had no idea how to play with others. It was just he was an incredible talent.
Jordan and Wilt, they called the series off after 3 games. It's a massacre. All right, hold on. I want you guys to go somewhere with me. So first, answer this question for me. Let's set aside Kobe for 1 second. Do you think Michael Jordan cares about this debate?
Of course he does, but Michael Jordan already knows that for all intents and purposes, he's the king, and it's very difficult to knock him off that throne because he has the mystique. See, it's not really even about what you did. After a while, it's about the mystique. People consider Muhammad Ali the greatest boxer of all time, and he was not undefeated. He did not have the most knockouts. What Ali has is the mystique. Same thing with Jim Brown in football. Jim Brown is not the all-time leader in rushing in the NFL. He's not the all-time leader in touchdowns, but he has the mystique. So many people still consider him the greatest NFL player of all time. Michael has the mystique. In baseball, you have Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth is not the all-time leader in home runs, but he has the mystique. Kobe and LeBron, they have no mystique compared to Jordan. So they're never going to be considered greater than him other than by their individual fans.
Does he care about being compared to LeBron James? Does he care about winning the GOAT debate?
No, not directly. And what I mean by that is that I've explained this to Max on several occasions and various others. It's not that they care about the individual comparisons. They care about the criteria. When LeBron retires, it's not going to be, and you have somebody else on the come up that we're saying is better than LeBron. It's not that he's going to look at the individual player and say, oh, that guy's better than me, or he's not better than me. He's going to look at the criteria. He's going to look at the style of play. He's going to look at the times that we're living in. He's going to look at the rules that favor a particular offensive play, or a system rather. Like today's game is much softer than the game back in the day. You understand that Steph Curry wouldn't have been what he is because they'd have hurt him. They'd have put something on him. Because
whatever, dude. You know, I get so tired of this Steph Curry stuff. Steph Curry is the only player in today's game where people go out of their way to say if he played back in the 80s, he would not be the player that he was. No one says this about Dame Lillard or Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook or whoever. It's just assumed that they would still be the same player if they played back in the 1980s. No matter what era Steph Curry would have played in, he would have been a highly impactful player. Now, of course, right now in this era, they don't hand check per se. But the things that Steph Curry would have been able to do to adapt would have still allowed him to be highly effective. Stephen A. Smith and many of these people, they get on TV and they try to act like the NBA was football back in the 80s, and it wasn't. It just was not. As a matter of fact, in the 80s, it was very free-flowing, and the offensive metrics were very high. The NBA right now is just starting to get back to the offensive output and the offensive metrics that they reached back in the 80s. It was the 90s that was a very defensive era. But Steph Curry would have had to have done what many of the other players did back in the 90s, which is get in the weight room and hit them weights really hard. Right now, it's not as important to have so much muscle mass because the game is so free-flowing. But this notion that Steph Curry would not have been a great player back in the 80s is nonsense. Isaiah Thomas, about 6'1", maybe 6'1", probably weighed about $180. You had a player named Michael Adams who was on the Bullets, who was about 5'8", 160 pounds. I mean, give me a break.
Because the rules allowed you to get physical. So they pay attention to those kind of things. In other words, the Jordan rules that were implemented by the bad boy Pistons, Jordan thinks about having to go through that to ascend to the point that he ascended to. And he's asking who else had to go through that. So they look at those things. And if we're not consistent with the criteria we utilize to judge those guys, that's when guys get their back up and they're offended. If you're judging everybody by the same accord, and you can believe what you want, they might debate or argue with you, but it's no big deal. But where they get their back up, and they're very, very serious about it, is when we change the standard to a less rigid fashion.
Yeah, like you've done with LeBron James. Making excuses for his poor performances in many pivotal moments with this nonsense about how he's played greater competition than Michael Jordan. When has that ever been a part of the criteria where players are evaluated in that way? Well, yeah, Jordan's 6-0 and LeBron is 3-6, but it's not just about championships. LeBron also played tougher competition than Jordan. What are you talking about? LeBron James played on the only super team in the NBA all the way from 2010 to 2016. So he actually underperformed in the finals in that time period. It's his fault. It's not anybody else's fault. Oh, well, you know, he went against the Spurs, and the Spurs had, 3 Hall of Famers. Okay, so did the Heat. You lost. Oh, well, Golden State's a super team. Golden State did not become a super team until the 2016-2017 season when they signed Durant. And even then, LeBron James has to outplay Kevin Durant. And you still have Kyrie against Steph. And, those two teams were supposed to be evenly matched after Golden State signed KD. It's still unbelievable what Golden State was able to do that regular season in 2016 with the dearth of talent that they had. That team was not that talented. They had Steph Curry, they had Klay Thompson, and really who else? Harrison Barnes, a nice role player. People overrated that team so much. It really is a wonder what they were able to accomplish in that regular season because they were not that naturally talented. They were just playing in a system and a style that was very difficult for most of the teams in the league to guard because of the way with which Curry could stretch the floor. But the Cavs were supposed to win that series. They were the favorites to win the championship coming into that season.
For their predecessors, for their successors. That's when they have a problem with
Jordan
guys.
cares about it, but I want to relate a story that Stephen A. told me once about Michael Jordan.
Sure.
And this is my version of like sports pornography, practically. It's my favorite sports story of all time.
That's a hell of a metaphor.
Michael Jordan used to infuriate his opponents before big games. He would do things off the court to infuriate them. And when Stephen A. told me this, I said, of course, this is what Muhammad Ali used to do. You want to get under their skin, throw him off his game. Stephen A. said, no. Jordan used to tell me I wanted them to hate me so they were the best versions of themselves.
And then he would destroy them.
So that when I beat them, they knew I beat their best. Michael Jordan spends his time nowadays watching LeBron James, thinking, how would I defend him? He is psychotically competitive.
We already know how Michael Jordan would defend LeBron James. He let that cat out the bag about 7 years ago. That's one of the main reasons why LeBron James improved his left-hand finishes at the basket so much, is because Michael Jordan basically let it be known that when LeBron James drives left, he does not finish with the left hand, or he does not even look to finish. He looks to pass. And after that, LeBron James started to, of course, improve himself in that area.
Defectively competitive.
The reason that I bring up Jordan, I want to bring Kobe back here now, is I think there are people that pay attention to this. I think it does fuel some. I think they're fueled by anger and a burning desire and edge. And then there are those who know what they can control, as you point out, Max, who know I can't control the debate. I controlled it when I was on the floor. I can't control what Stephen A. or Max thinks. There are where you...
Well, to Max Kellerman's point, I'm not quite sure if it's about control. I think that Kobe knows that there's not enough empirical data for him to say those things. Believe me, if Kobe Bryant finished his career averaging more points per game than Michael Jordan and won 6 titles or 7 titles, he would say it's not even a comparison. He would say it's me. But because he knows none of the numbers corroborate what he feels or what he believes, then he says, I'm just going to stay out of the conversation.
That is a unique...
Which is smart, because he knows that in order for him to prove his case, he's going to have to start to downgrade Michael Jordan's career. A la LeBron James. He's going to have to start trying to pull down on Jordan, because that's the only way that he would be able to rise up to Jordan's level.
Ability to understand the world. And maybe these guys are unique, or maybe they have that edge still and still care.
Let me give you a nugget of information. I can't tell you how many times, whether it's Jordan, Isaiah, or anybody else, any of those stars, any of the guys that used to play, that are Hall of Famers, I can't tell you how many arguments I've had with them over players that had nothing to do with them.
Of course, because they're caping for their era.
They would argue. I mean, Jordan will argue on behalf of Bird.
Right.
Of course he would, because he knows how great Larry Bird was, which a lot of people don't understand. That's why I state Larry Bird is the greatest small forward of all time, above LeBron James. Larry Bird basically accomplished in half the time the same things that LeBron James has accomplished. Larry won 3 titles. LeBron James has 3 titles. LeBron has 4 MVPs. Larry Bird has 3. But he won his consecutively.
Isaiah would argue on behalf of other guys. I mean, you know, when you heard names like, for example, names that we don't even mention or think about, the Junior Bridgmans and Sidney Moncriefs of the world, and people like that.
Sidney Moncrief was a bad boy. The last person I heard mention Sidney Moncrief was Kevin Durant.
Alvin Robinson, strongest guy. I mean, this guy was a ox.
Alvin Robinson was not just strong, he was crazy.
You hear people talking about...
I believe he's locked up right now.
About him like this, like, what? They think about it. And so this is what I mean when I talk about them protecting the culture and the history.
Real quick.
Because they're going to hold you accountable for the standard that you held them to. They want you to hold it to LeBron and others.
Real quick, Jordan went for 6 championships because Magic had 5. That was the modern era record, right? Jordan wants to be the greatest ever, and he knows he can prove it. This is why Kobe doesn't want to debate it.
Well, no, Jordan does not want to be the greatest ever. He knows that he could let his numbers and his accomplishments speak for themselves, which is going to have him be considered the greatest ever. And then on top of that, he also has the mystique, which Kobe does not have. I mean, you can't wear the black hat over the course of your career and then campaign to be considered the greatest ever. It just does not work that way.
He knows in his heart he's the best ever, but he can't prove it.
But do you think it burns Kobe that more often than not, the debate is MJ versus LeBron?
Of course, because Kobe thinks that he's better than LeBron.
Kobe
gotta burn.
Kobe is an intellectual. He doesn't have much patience for what he considers to be idiocy. He definitely values those that paved the way that played in a different time and a different system. No old school guys that value him, because Kobe's a guy that believes that they value him more than they value somebody like LeBron. Like we talk about.
Well, Kobe definitely has a quote-unquote old school aura about him. There's no doubt that that's one of the reasons why his style of play and his mentality endeared him to Michael Jordan, as well as to other players from the 80s.
Talk about Jordan. You remember Wojnarowski, Woj interviewed Giannis the other day. And Giannis talked about, I'm not trying to be friends with anybody. I'm going up against it, right? Remember when he said that?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Well, guess what? Kobe wasn't that kind of guy, right? Giannis is not that kind of guy, right? Who is that kind of guy? Who befriends everybody?
LeBron.
Hugging everybody, singing Kumbaya, we all boys, let's hang out.
LeBron James.
Nah, that's not the old school cat.
One
They
thing
ain't
is
about
for sure
that.
about
That's
Kobe.
all I'm saying.
One thing is for sure, one of the brightest athletes I've ever dealt with.
No question.
Like
Right.
I
Well, he's certainly very bright. That's why the powers that be tapped him to be the person to teach witchcraft to the youth,
you know,
or to promote it to the youth.
not just basketball.
Highly
He's a
intelligent.
legitimately bright guy.
Highly intelligent.
All right, let's leave it here.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. Very good conversation. But once again, Kobe knows that he really can't prove shit, so he's smart to stay out of it. So peace.